European rockets are crashing because of parts made in Ukraine, causing Peru to back out of a deal for Ukrainian-made airplanes. It seems that Ukraine is only good at building internment camps for Russians living in Ukraine. None of that is true. Welcome to StopFake, the place where we dissect disinformation about Ukraine and a little more. So let's get to it. Russian media were reporting that Ukrainians buried a European missile after the November 17 European Vega launch failed at the Guyana Space Center in Kourou, French Guyana. On the 8th minute of the flight, the fourth stage of the rocket, which was equipped with a Ukrainian-made engine, deviated from course and crashed. Without waiting for official data about the crash, Russian media outlets were sprinting to be first to blame Ukraine, alleging that the Ukrainian engine caused the mishap and this would be another nail in the coffin for Ukraine's high-tech industry. So what actually happened? Well, the commercial space company Arianespace Vega VV-17 mission crashed on the night of November 17. The first three stages of the four-stage Vega launcher were operating normally, having separated from the rocket on time. The fourth stage, called the AVUM, ignited 8 minutes into the launch, at which time Vega lost control, stopped responding to commands, and departed from its assigned orbit. The AVUM module is what carries the liquid propellant rocket engine developed by the Ukrainian engineering firm Pivdenne and built at the Dnipro rocket factory Pivdenmash. The failure caused the loss of Vega's payload, a Spanish observation satellite and a French satellite to study electromagnetic phenomenon in the upper atmosphere. The failure of the booster launched a wave of misinformation in the Russian media space, and also some Ukrainian media outlets which immediately declared the Ukrainian engine responsible for the crash. But after analyzing the mission telemetry, Arianespace announced the reason for the crash was human error. Arianespace Chief Technical Officer Roland Laguier explained that cables to two thrust vector control actuators were inverted, and commands intended to go to one actuator went instead to the other, triggering the loss of control. The mythical Ukrainian engine design defects that Russian media were peddling were not responsible for Vega's crash. Arianespace has been using Ukrainian engines in its launches since 2012. During this time, not a single Vega launch vehicle has crashed because of engine malfunction. 86 spacecraft have been successfully launched into orbit for customers from all over the world with the help of Ukrainian-made engines. Russian media have been busy spreading fakes claiming that the Peruvian government has pulled out of an agreement with Ukraine for the purchase of Antonov planes, calling the planes invisible ghosts. This is the fourth wave of such fakes this year. Part of this misinformation onslaught is the myth that without Russia's help, Ukraine's Antonov company cannot produce a single item from scratch. Russian media have been spreading fakes about the Ukrainian contract with Peru from the moment it was signed in the autumn of 2019. Ukraine's defense export company Spets-Techno-Export and the Ukrainian state company Antonov won the contract with the AN-178 model, beating Leonardo and Airbus in an open tender. A few weeks after the contract was signed, Russian media began circulating stories claiming Ukraine was incapable of honoring the contract with Peru and would fail to build the aircraft by 2021. In December of 2019, Antonov issued a statement stating the company had both the facilities and the personnel to fulfill the contract with Peru in the allotted time and publish photographs of already completed work. After this fake was debunked, the Russian propaganda machine launched their misinformation in a different direction, this time claiming Ukraine would be unable to meet the 2021 contract deadline because Ukraine no longer had access to Russian components needed for the plane's construction. But this narrative was also debunked, and in the summer of 2020, Antonov completed the replacement of Russian components with Ukrainian and Western parts. In September, several Russian publications announced that Peru's Interior Ministry suspended its contract with Ukraine. 2 months after StopFake debunked this story, Russian media launched yet another fake, again claiming that Peru had abandoned its contract with Ukraine and the plane it was supposed to build was just a mirage. Despite this onslaught of Russian fakes, on November the 12th, Spets-Techno-Expert and Antonov held an online conference with the Peruvian Interior Ministry during which Peru once again confirmed that the contract between Ukraine and Peru for the supply of the AN-178 aircraft remained in force. The video conference was held from the assembly plant where the aircraft is being built. Russia's narrative about Ukraine being unable to build airplanes is simply not true. Since 2015, when the prototype of the new AN-178 transporter took off for the first time, 5 AN-178 aircraft have gone into production. Antonov is currently building 3 AN-148 planes and 10 AN-158 models. Over the last 10 years, Antonov has manufactured 10 planes from the AN-148 and AN-158 series and 6 AN-32 aircraft. Claims that Ukraine can outwork without Russia, or that Ukraine has not built a single plane after the 2013-2014 Maidan Revolution, are complete nonsense. A number of Russian publications featured stories in November claiming that Ukrainian authorities want to amend legislation in order to detain all Russians and resettle them in separate zones. The fake claims that from now on, Ukraine's security service will be able to track Russians crossing the Ukrainian border and transfer their data to the Ukrainian military. These Russians will then be resettled in special zones, reservations, which will be organized by local authorities. The fake story is accompanied by a table, which is part of a draft law amending existing laws regulating issues related to prisoners of war and interned persons. But upon closer examination, it becomes clear that this entire story is another example of Kremlin manipulation and distortion. Now, the issue is draft law number 4327 drawn up by Ukraine's defense ministry in accordance with the Geneva Convention. The word Russians never appears in this draft law. The draft bill states that during special periods, Ukraine's security service should take measures to identify on its territory citizens of countries who are hostile towards Ukraine or carry out acts of aggression against the country. Those who pose a threat to Ukraine's national security and convey that information to Ukraine's armed forces for the internment of such persons, taking into account the real and potential military threats to Ukraine's national security. Such functions will be carried out by the security service only during special periods specified by law. As for the internment procedure, they will occur only when absolutely necessary in situations of real and potential military threats to Ukraine's national security, where other measures stipulated by international and Ukrainian law were insufficient. The explanatory note to the bill states that the adoption of this law will ensure the fulfillment of Ukraine's international obligations regarding the maintenance of prisoners of war and internees during a special period in accordance with Geneva Convention norms. That's it for this week. Be vigilant, stay safe, and be on the lookout for fakes. Remember, wearing a mask, washing your hands, and social distancing will protect you from the coronavirus, but critical thinking will protect you from Russian disinformation. And if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko, Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.